first welcome on stage Union Minister Harsimrat Badal. Let's have a round of applause for her. Next, somebody who almost needs no introduction. In fact, the 5 women who are coming on stage, you know all of them. They're really, really accomplished, successful women. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome on stage the MD and CEO of ICICI Bank, Chanda Kochhar. Let's have a round of applause for Ms. Kochhar. We just heard from Her Excellency, the Australian High Commissioner Harinder Sidhu. Such an interesting cross-cultural conversation. It is my pleasure to welcome her back on stage, High Commissioner Harinder Sidhu, with roots in our very own Punjab. Let's have a round of applause. Thank you. I now welcome back on stage, you saw her yesterday, honoring Ikra Rasool from Kashmir, the cricket team captain Mithali Raj. And last but never the least, actor, model, and someone with a very strong opinion or two of her own, Sonam Kapoor. Let's welcome her on stage. Big round of applause for Sonam. So we're here to discuss whether successful women have it tougher than successful men. Women leaders, how do women leaders like the ones we're seeing on stage create spaces that encourage other women? Is women-friendly environment a patronizing word? Isn't all that we really seek an equal opportunity and a level playing field? Given that 20 million Indian women quit their jobs between 2004 and 2012, how do we enable more women to return to the workforce? And what about the woeful underrepresentation of women in parliament, in corporate boardrooms? I don't know how it is in the world of diplomacy. We'll hear from Harinder. Mithali shared with us yesterday that as a woman cricketer, she had to travel in an unreserved train, something that would never have happened to a male cricketer. Sonam, even in the film industry with all her success, there's a gap in what men and women are paid. So there are a whole bunch of issues on the table. I'd like to start with the minister. Ma'am, we're going to bring up a plate now, which is a very interesting figure. You don't actually need me to tell you this, but for the audience. What percentage of parliament do you think is made up of women? Any guesses? Any guesses? It's actually a little better. It's about 11%. But do you know where that places us in relation to the world? In terms of how many women members of parliament we have? That plate is going to come up on your screen in just a second. But women MPs in India, India ranks 148. That's how bad it is, 148. You're a member of parliament, you're a cabinet minister. Those numbers are dismal. Why is it like this? I've been a journalist for 22 years. Since I've been covering politics, I keep hearing about the women's reservation bill. I don't think it's ever going to pass in, I don't know, in our lifetime, you think? Why are these numbers so poor? And is quotas and affirmative action the way forward? How do you read this underrepresentation?
Well, I definitely feel that half the population needs half the representation. And even if we were to start with 33%, it's long overdue.
I know, why 33? Why not 50%?
We've not reached 33, Barkha. Let's just be realistic and try and get somewhere first. And there's no doubt that, thank God, there came in 33%, at least at the panchayat and the local bodies level, because as a member of parliament, I can tell you that when we go to the villages, I often hear, when I first became an MP, this is my second term, was that, Madam, ab jitni aurtein hain, pehle kabhi nahi aati thi. And when I went and asked the women that, thank you so much for coming, why are you here? They said, we never came earlier because we could never get close enough to the men to even tell them our problem, that now that you're a woman, we feel that we can come to you and tell you, and which is the beauty of the whole thing, because when I speak to the male electorate, they would only tell me there's no irrigation water, sadak nahi hai. They would never tell me ki peene ka pani nahi hai or school mein teacher nahi hai, because those are the things that impacted the women, or toilets nahi hai.
Right.
So definitely women coming into politics is going to take care of needs of women. And yes, all parties, there's politics at play. If everybody made up their mind, they all speak about it. But if they decided to make up their mind and allow the women's reservation bill, of course it would come in. But then, like you, we need the numbers, and those numbers don't exist.
How tough has it been for you to be a woman in politics? How has it been different? You're married to somebody who's in politics. Do you ever compare notes? Does Sukhbir have it easier?
I definitely think he does. I think women in any profession, I think they have a more challenging time than the men. Like I tell Sukhbir, you just have to think about your constituency and about your work. It doesn't matter to you whether the sweeping lady is coming, not coming, whether cook's gone off on chutti, whether kid has fallen sick, or whether the driver's on chutti. I have to still look at all those things.
Why don't you make him do it also?
Yeah, I wish I could, but it's the, I don't know when we will start nurturing the boys to think that if the safai wala hasn't come, you have to understand and do something about it, not your wife's job. But unfortunately, I am not in that era. And I still have a mother who tells me that, what are you running around the countryside? Don't you know your job is to look after your 3 kids? Give it up. So when you have a mother who's still telling you that and still making you feel guilty despite all you do, I think it's just the mindset, and the mindset needs to change with the women first. Because I have a 90-year-old father-in-law who tells my daughter, forget if your mother tells you to get married, you study and do what you want in life. And
exactly.
I said, it's just the mindset. And I wish I'd got a father like that who had not taught me that your job is to get married and have kids, but I'd had one like my father-in-law who taught me that fly and the sky's the limit. So my daughter's lucky that she has that support. And,
that's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that's what's necessary today. We need to change the mindset from our homes and of our kids, and that's the only way. Otherwise, crime against women is rising. It's becoming worse every year. The conviction rates are dismal. So things are becoming worse, and unless we as individuals decide to change the way our kids think, we can't expect some government and some police and some media to do it. You have to do it yourself.
So before I open it up, what is it with women and guilt? Why are these two words used together, whether we talk about ambition, whether we talk about sexuality, whether we talk about parenthood? What is it? Are we just congenitally wired to feel guilty all the time?
Probably that, but I think to some extent, it's probably our upbringing as well, where we are just psyched to think that, your job is to make a home and to look after the kids. That is your primary job. Along with, you have to earn and do these other things. But then, yes, I think we're constantly on a guilt trip. I'm sure you don't have kids, but you're on a guilt trip. I've got 3, I'm on a guilt trip. And I'm sure all the women sitting here must be on a guilt trip. Because the moment you go out to work and you've got a sick kid at home, you somehow feel you're doing injustice and you should be there. But I don't see my husband feeling that. So he thinks it's his job to go out and work and earn.
So before I come to Chanda, Kochhar, can I put that to the audience? Raise your hand if you find yourself grappling with guilt that you know to be irrational. Do you grapple with guilt while knowing that you shouldn't feel guilty? Yes? And we're seeing these wonderful women soldiers in the front row here who are also raising their hands at that. Raise your hands if you're saying, enough with this stupid guilt. And let's have a round of applause for that attitude. Wonderful.
But it doesn't go away just by raising your hand. I wish it would.
Chanda, Kochhar, we look at you, we look at actually all 5 of you, and you would imagine that, the glass ceiling is shattered. If it isn't shattered, then at least it has enough cracks that by the time the next generation comes, it'll be broken, right? But actually, ma'am, if you look at the numbers, that's not true. And before I actually ask you what you've done as a woman leader to enable workspace environments, I want to look at some other statistics if we can bring them up. So it's mandatory, actually, to have at least 1 woman director in corporations. However, less than 7%, there are less than 7% women in Indian boardrooms. Take a look at that number carefully. Less than 7% of women in Indian boardrooms. And if I can get the next plate up, 1/4 of listed companies, these are listed companies, publicly listed companies, 1/4 of India's listed companies failed to appoint a single woman in their boardrooms. Why is it so difficult, ma'am?
Well, I think
you know, it's a matter of evolution of our society and our thinking as well. For women to reach the boardroom, we also need women, a lot of women in the workforce, not just when they're joining in, but actually moving through the years and, you know, being available there in the medium and the top management for women to actually get picked to be in the boardrooms on their merit. So, you know, first of all, I believe that we should basically think and believe, all of us, that women can do everything on their merit.
Yeah, I agree. So am I hearing you say that we don't need affirmative action, we don't need these mandatory
so I'm
rules?
saying all that helps. But let's not say that it's only that can make women grow. I think it's very important for women to first feel that I can do it because I want to do it and I'm capable of doing it. And we have seen that in our organization. You know, the biggest comfort that the women get for them to keep working hard is the feeling and the belief that if they work hard, if they are capable, they are not going to be discriminated against. And I think that is the biggest comfort that the woman needs, because she's capable. I mean, you see all the, you know, examination results, the 10th standard, the 12th standard, and so on. Actually, girls are not just doing as well, they are in fact doing better. Yeah. So they are capable. And then they are willing to put in hard work. But of course, they need that comfort that if I put in the same hard work, will I be discriminated against or not? So I think that comfort of being a gender-neutral organization is a big, big comfort. But at the same time, I think we have to recognize that women have these special needs, especially at certain life stages in life. So, you know, when they are becoming mothers, I think that's the time they are just new to their job. Maybe they are a new daughter-in-law. They are also becoming a mother. And it is difficult. It is difficult at that time to cope with everything.
Can you share personally
so I'll share
how you battled with that? Because we heard Minister Badal share that, you know, that she's still arguing, having that argument with her husband all these years later. Does that happen for you at home?
Yeah, so, no, so in fact, the arguments don't happen, but how do you handle it personally? I think the way you handle it personally is that you really kind of ride on the entire ecosystem that's available to you to be with you so that you tide over that issue. So yes, I had an organization that was gender neutral, that's fine, but I still became a mother twice over. And I think I was very lucky to have my mother and my mother-in-law there almost all the time. So I will tell you that till the time my kids were in school, whenever I went overnight for any office work, my mother would come and stay the night to just make sure that the children went to school on time. Now, my mother-in-law was just living next door and I had this comfort on a daily basis. But again, what I would want to tell the women is that when that happens, learn to accept that ecosystem with grace. Learn to value that ecosystem with grace. Because when you are relying on that ecosystem, it's not that every day your child is going to eat what you want him or her to eat. She is also going to eat what your mother-in-law wants her to eat. And please accept that and ignore it for some time. But you know, talking of life stage, so I think what we do as an organization now is that we've started something what is called work from home. And work from home is not just about saying that, you know, you can sit in one corner and you can do some data entry and we'll pay you some, you know, few hours of work. We say that you can continue with your full-fledged career even if for a few years you worked from home during these special, you know, years of yours. And we've created, through use of technology, a full work environment at home. So the computer, through your face, recognizes that it's only you who are working. It recognizes that if there are too many people hovering around you, it shuts down. So with that, the person is able to be part of the regular work, and we make sure that the person's appraisal system at the end of the year does not suffer just because she was working from home.
That's a really interesting interpretation of flexi hours, but I want to push both of you on this a little bit, and then I'll open it up. Remember, audience, use the hashtag #WeTheWomen and tweet away, or Facebook, Instagram, your comments. We were trending yesterday, and we are going to trend today as well. I want to be a contrarian here. We focus so much on creating flexible hours for women. Are we approaching this all wrong? Why are we not talking about equality at home? Why are we constantly actually enabling women tools to juggle both home and work instead of pushing men to do 50% of the work at home so that women did not need as many flexible hours? When will we see that day? I'll start with you and then I'll come to Chanda.
I think it's a crime that you're not a mother-in-law. I mean, that's the kind of thought process we need. But Barkha, don't forget that 60% of our country lives in the rural areas.
Yeah, and maybe
Chanda's been really lucky, and I must say, each one of you working women, if you have a mother or a mother-in-law who fills in for you while you're away, really thank the Almighty, because I had my mother who did it for me for my first kid, and she says, I've had it, I'm not going to do it for all the kids you want to keep producing. I did for 3 of my own, not for you. After that, I had my mother-in-law who said I had no time, and my mother who said I had no time. And believe me, it was tough leaving a 4-year-old kid and an 8-year-old kid and a 10-year-old and going off to work to give to your constituents what they expected of you. And when you had to make this balance of, I owe it to these women who voted me in to make a difference in their lifestyle. And you get a phone call from, 6 hours away home that your kid has fallen in school and hurt his head. And you know you're going to get flack for it, that what a useless mother, she can't be there for her kid. Not just from the teachers and the school who think, I mean, what a mother, she doesn't even come for the parent-teacher meetings. But also from people at home, it's not easy. So we often think that, oh, mom-in-law is not doing a good job or mom's such a pain. But I tell you, if you've got someone helping you out, really thank the Almighty, because there's so few of us who have that. And yes, I totally agree. It's time we started changing the mindset, but why can't the guys stay at home? But isn't it us that when there is a house husband,
we are socialized
we kind of
to
look
judge.
down. I know in the parent-teacher meeting, when there used to be this one dad coming, in my first kid, we'd all whisper, where's his wife? I mean, why does he come? So somewhere it's us, our mentality hasn't still changed, and that really does need to change.
And that's what I want to ask you, Chanda. Would you give these flexi hours to men?
So we do a lot of these, what we call actually employee-friendly practices.
And they're gender neutral?
Yeah, so they're gender neutral.
Great. That's fantastic.
But there is one thing which is not gender neutral, and I must say that as well, is that what we've done now in ICICI, I spoke about whenever I had to travel out of town overnight. So what we've done now is we've said that all those mothers, and this is only for mothers, who have children up to 3 years of age, if they are traveling overnight for office work, we now pay for the child's travel as well as a caretaker's travel. And, the other thing about, you said, why don't we create these kind of environments at home? Well, I think a lot of it is changing as well. But at the same time, let me tell you that I am a firm believer of the fact that I think part of it is women's privilege, and let's not crib about it. I think the privilege of being a mother is no one can take it away from you, and let's enjoy that privilege. So, well, with that comes a few responsibilities. We need to handle them. We should share them as much as we can with the family. But at the same time, I think women have certain attributes, and I think that's why they get dumped with so much more that they need to do. But, I think women are much more flexible and adaptable. Women or girls at a certain age are just told one fine day that you now leave your home and from next day start living in some other home. I mean, it requires adaptability, flexibility, and I think that's in there.
But can't we say no?
No, but I mean...
Can't we say, like, you move out and I'll move out and we live in a third place?
Yeah, why not? Why not? And some are doing that as well. But I'm saying there is a bigger adaptability and flexibility in the minds of women. I think there is more empathy in the minds of women. I feel that if you had more women even working in a car manufacturing company, you would have better place where you would put your bag. Because that's how women need to view it. So I think women need to think and tend to think of what others want. And I think that empathy itself exists more. But the last and not the least is I think women are much better at multitasking. I cannot imagine men multitasking. I think they will make a mess of it.
So here's my question. Let me get the other three of our distinguished guests in now. High Commissioner Harinder Sidhu, this great capacity for multitasking, is it killing us with kindness? You know these ads that you see where there'll be this high-powered CEO like Chanda Kochhar, she'll be like handling phone calls, doing deals, and then some phone call will come, aaj khane mein kya banana hai? And she'll also say, aaj paneer banana hai. I mean, are we just killing ourselves with this superwoman? I sometimes call it chains. Are they imprisoning us, this pressure to be everything to everybody?
Multitasking is pretty exhausting, eh?
Yeah.
I think it can become a bit of a noose around our neck, you know. Women multitask because they have to.
Yeah.
You know, I worked in senior jobs throughout. I, for the largest part, raised my daughter on my own. I did the whole juggle with in Australia, I didn't have the advantage of the extended family that people do here. So childcare is hard to get, it's expensive, and you do a very big juggle. And yes, you do it. And you know, I think many women I meet have phenomenal stamina, but so do so many men. And what we are doing in Australia now is we are trying to move to more and more gender-neutral family policies. There is a move to encourage men to support men to do their bit in the home. So we no longer have maternity leave, we have parental leave. Either the father or the mother can share the time off work when a new child comes along, for example. Flexible work is available to men and women equally. We have a way to go. Statistics still show in Australia that women still do the bulk of unpaid work after hours. But those things go some way, but not the whole way, to resolving the gender gap problem.
Mithali, we were talking briefly yesterday. We had a very lovely moment on stage where we had this teenage girl from Kashmir. She grew up in a village and she dreams of being the next Mithali Raj, and we had Mithali award her. But Mithali shared a story, and I want you to elaborate a little bit on it, on how before you, as cricketers, came under the BCCI, how you were treated as cricketers and how different that was from the way that men were treated, something that Rahul Dravid actually acknowledged to you.
I think before coming under the umbrella of BCCI...
Just hold it closer, the mic.
Yeah. Coming under the umbrella of BCCI, it was very difficult because we were not given the basic facility as sportswomen, as cricketers. Being an international player, I used to train on rough grounds, on matting, and then go and play international games on turf wicket. The first tour of India, my dad had to really reach out to his bank to sponsor my tour as a national player. And coming from a middle-class family, it was very difficult to fund my tours. So there were times my school has funded, and playing for India itself was very difficult. Traveling in unreserved, having a championship trophy next to me, I was sitting in an unreserved compartment.
What did that make you feel that moment? Because, you know, you saw all the attention showered on our male cricket stars, right?
Well, I've never really compared myself or my situation with the male cricketers, because I do understand that women's cricket was not visible in those times because we were not on television. But the ignorance of people to ask questions as to, you know, do you play with tennis ball because the cricket ball is too hard, you might get hurt, or you might get, you know, stitches on, I do have stitches on my face. But, you know, they would ask whether the boundary is shortened because the girls don't have the strength to clear the boundary. So these were the questions that very often I've been asked about. And when there were times when I was pitted against Rahul Dravid or Sachin Tendulkar for scoring my world record for the awards, I was left behind because Rahul Dravid scored more number of runs. But people never really understood that I hardly had 2-3 matches and he played 10 games. So this is how the comparisons were in the society when it comes to women's cricket. And a lot of these parents and, you know, my own grandparents didn't like the fact that I was pursuing sport.
What's been the toughest thing for you to reach this point? The toughest thing about being female in a sport like cricket?
Often I'm compared to the male cricketers. Often our financial status, our class in the society is compared to what the men cricketers are. Today people tell Virat Kohli is at the stage, or Sachin Tendulkar is at the stage. But people don't understand that you've not given us that much opportunities or the resources that they had, that where we could utilize and come to that stage.
Sonam, the pay gap is pretty real in your industry, and it's something similar that's actually said, that look, your films don't sell the way the Shah Rukh and Amir and Salman's do, right?
Yeah.
But the fact is that scripts are not written in that way for women. Scripts, it's changing, but are mostly centered, or were for years centered around men. So it's a catch-22. Like, where do you get that enabling environment to prove? And you know, you've done films like Neerja, where the woman has finally been at the center of the movie, but those films are still too few and far between.
Yeah, you know, it's a very small story. The way I've been brought up, there was never any disparity between my brother and I. So I came back home one day and I was very, very upset. And my dad asked me, because he's never ever said, you know, my son is different or my daughter is different. I've had a very progressive upbringing. And I said, you know, Dad, I waited for like 7 hours and they took my clothes up at this time and I was looking exhausted, I'm feeling unwell, and I've waited so long and this is the situation and all. He's like, you should have just left. I never give my clothes ups after 6 or 7 hours. I was like, Dad, I can't. There was a big star and, you know, they would have gotten really upset. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, my father couldn't understand the discrimination because he'd never faced it. And when I explained to him, he's like, you're never putting yourself in a situation like that again. I was like, why? He's like, because you have the privilege of a safety net. So you need to have more courage to make choices which enable other women to make choices. So he's like, it's okay if you sit at home for a year and a half. It's fine. He's like, only work with people who give you that respect that they're giving other people. And believe you me, that was my dad saying that. I waited a year and a half till I was sitting at home for a year and a half till I had an Anand Rai coming in and saying, will you do Ranjana? And I was like, fine. I was like, who is the other co-star? You know, because again, you know, it's subconscious. You just ask these questions. He's like, I'll only cast someone after I cast you. And he read out the script and he's like, I can't make this film without you. And I was like, okay, fine. And just that attitude, because he has a daughter as well, was what sold me into doing that film. And I did a film with Dhanush and I was paid exactly the same amount. And, you know...
And how rare is that, to be paid exactly the same amount?
You know, it's very rare, but I make my choices because I have the privilege to make my choices, Barkha. Right. So I can afford that courage.
Yeah.
You understand? I can afford the courage of working in a film like Neerja or doing a film like Khoobsurat, where it's okay for me to be like, excuse me, if you're going to be paying anybody else more than me, who I know what my box office numbers are. I know that since Ranjana, I've not had one failure on the box offices. I know what my openings are, and I know what I deserve. So at that point, I can afford to make those choices because I have the support of my father and my mother saying, it's okay. You know, the disrespect is not worth it, you know, and that comes, like everybody is saying, that comes from upbringing and mindset. So if I'm sitting there, even for someone like me who has studied abroad and whose parents have been extremely progressive, there's a conditioning that society gives you where you feel like guilty. You know, and also there's too much competition, right? So if I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to do this, and I take a stand, there will be another woman coming up and saying that, it's fine, I'll do it for this much, and I'll do this. So the whole point is that we need to all stick together and be together.
So we need to stand together
to do it.
And for each other.
Yes, absolutely. And that is not going to happen if you're constantly, you know, pulling each other down. And it's a very difficult upward climb, but it's very, very difficult to do it.
So talking about the gender pay gap, I want to bring up this statistic up on our screens. This is a recent survey that shows us two things. Women in India earn 25% less than men. 25% less than men, this is a conservative estimate. Some studies actually say that in some areas that gap is as high as 60%. So this is actually an averaged out figure. Now let's show you how this actually breaks down. The International Labour Organization, if I can have the next plate, please. Women form 60% of the lowest paid wage labor, which means at the bottom of the earning pyramid, you actually have many more women. So 60% of the lowest paid wage labor, but just 15% of highest wage earners. Chanda, how is it in the corporate sector in terms of parity in how women and men are paid?
Well, I think in that sense, the corporate sector
the large organized corporate sector is of course quite different, because there you don't make a difference between how men and women are paid. For the same job, the women get paid the same thing. But as I'm saying, this is about the large organized corporate sector. But you know, again, I believe that sometimes there is possibility of unbiased or unintentional bias creeping in. So you have women, you pay them the same, but at the end of it, if you kind of see two candidates, one male and one woman, and you say both are equal, I may as well take the man. You know, that is the kind of unintentional bias also that needs to go away, from our thinking, from our society, and even from the larger organizations.
But are women shy is not the right word, reticent about asking for money? One thing I've seen universally, and this applies to me, it applies to every woman I know, I have seen men negotiating, I'll take this job offer if you give me this much equity. I'll stay with you if this is my increment. But we're so coy about talking about money. I just find, I don't know how many of you feel that you're uncomfortable asking for a raise. Please raise your hand if as women you're uncomfortable asking for a raise.
I think you feel that you want the quality of your work
to speak for itself
and get remunerated or get promoted because of your work. And that's just how we are different to the men. We don't want to bargain because we know our value and we want our work to speak for it. But unfortunately, most of the time it doesn't. I think World Economic Forum or World Bank, one of their studies, I don't know which of them, said nowhere in the world do women get equal amount of pay for the equal amount of work. It's even in the progressive countries. But I think somewhere the fact of the matter that women are, if you look at our country or anywhere else, 1/3 more women are getting educated compared to the men, even in higher education. And somewhere with education will come remuneration as well when the whole trend changes. Yes, I agree with Chanda that at the end of the day, even if they're as capable, or maybe even if she's a little bit more capable, you'll still settle for the guy. And that's the mindset, because you just feel that she'll have other duties as well. But yes, as women, we do need to speak up. I can speak for my own profession. I work harder than maybe many other male professions because you come with this dynasty tag, so you have to prove yourself so much more. But I can't go back and tell my constituents that compare me to what the others are doing. You can't say that. You just have to speak for your work and hope that because of the work you've done, that's what's going to speak. And I don't know, we just hesitate.
Sonam, you were looking to join that. Like, are we reticent about being seen as aggressive?
I mean, I have to tell you, recently there was something that was offered to me, and I was very excited about the project, and the monies were shit, if I don't mind my language. And I made a call, and I was like, this is frankly very, very, very disrespectful. And there was shock on the other side, and they didn't expect me to call up and say that. I was like, you put me in a position after 10 years of being in this industry, after giving the most profitable film 2 years, like a year ago. I said my film released a year ago. It was the most profitable film of that year. There's no other film that's done as well. And I was like, there was no song, there was no dancing. I was in one outfit that everybody was making fun about. I was like, so please tell me, why is it that this is what you all afford, what you decide to give me? And they were like, our last film with so-and-so star didn't do so well, so we don't have that much money or whatever. So I was like, so because of this XYZ huge star, this film is not done well, but the one person who's actually done very, very well with my last 3 films, you want to undercut me so you can pay this male star way more? Yeah. I said, you've got to be kidding me. Please move on. You can find somebody else to do the film.
Good for you.
And, and it was frankly very, very disheartening because like everybody's saying, you know the kind of work you're putting in. Everybody says, you're born with a silver spoon, etc., 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 and it's afforded me a lot of privileges. But you do need to work harder. There's not much that grows under a banyan tree. So you need to keep proving yourself way more. But at the same time, you don't want to go out there and say, look at me, see what I'm doing, give me what I deserve, There are so many other biases that come in besides being a woman.
But, men don't hesitate to say, look at me, look at what I'm doing. Harinder, you want to join that?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, what I'm really impressed about is women do know our worth. But the question is whether we have the confidence to back ourselves to do that. And so I think that one of the things we're struggling with is how the culture goes. Trickle up is going to take a very long time.
Right.
The World Economic Forum said last month that to close the gender pay gap globally is going to take 217 years at the current rates.
Wow.
Just think about that. And so, you know, everybody's going to have to step up. But I'm just so impressed. I mean, I don't know many women who will stand up and say, this is what I can do, these are my numbers, this is what I can deliver, pay me what I'm worth. And you know, all of us feel that hesitation, and it's a skill we're going to have to learn, but it's also a workplace culture that has to learn that if a woman's worth it, she deserves to be paid what she's worth.
Mithali,
I can tell you a story on this because I think it's about the women's confidence and how they can, through their confidence, create a level playing field for themselves. So this is a story, again, of my organization, but at least 10 to 15 years ago, when, you know, I was not the CEO, there were male CEOs in the company, but we still had a lot of women who used to work, and we were at middle management level, higher management level, and so on. And one of the magazines, so this is media, they thought, you know, that let's do a story. There's so many women working here, and I'm sure once we go there, we'll find some problems existing. So they said, you know, let's come and interview some women. And they only wanted to interview women because they thought they'll find problems there. So they interviewed me, they interviewed the second, they interviewed the third, they interviewed the fourth. And by the time they finished interviewing 5 women in the organization, they went back to my CEO and said, can we interview some poor men in the company? So I think it's about, you know, how you are confident about yourself and how you actually believe that the work also has to speak for itself.
But, you know, when you look at cricket, for example, it isn't, you're not starting at the same point. You're running the same race, but you're running it from like about 10 kilometers behind, right, Mithali? You don't get the infrastructure, you don't get the sponsorships, you don't get the money. And I think people like you, and I want a round of applause for this, at least you started getting the audiences. I mean, earlier we weren't even getting the audiences, so hurrah to you for that. But it isn't an equal start, right? So how do you struggle with that and battle that every day?
Well, the other day I was just sharing this with my friend. I said when Sachin started playing for India at the age of, say, very young, and even I've represented India at the age of 16, not many knew about it. He's had a career, a long career of 22 plus years. I have 18 years, but it took me 18 years for people to stand up and watch me play today. But for Sachin, people have been noticing him from the beginning. So had you all seen me play from 16 years, I'm sure I would be somewhere around where, probably not the achievements that he has, but somewhere around that standard. And each time it took a lot out of me and the women cricketers to create our own identity. Today, after 18 years, still people say, you know, when they give an introduction, this is Sachin Tendulkar of women's cricket. I am here to create my own identity. 18 years, I've not aped Sachin. I've not played like him. I've played what I have, the ability that I have. So why do you even compare me with him? You know?
Barkha, what is very interesting, the other day we'd gone for this one program. We talk about mindsets. You know, when everybody watches Miss World and Miss India, who watches Mr. World and Mr. India? Huh? There was this program where we've gone to where the Miss India and the Mr. India had come, and everybody was hovering around the Miss India. That poor Mr. India, the door was shut on his way. He was saying, I'm Mr. India, let me in. So this mindset, I mean, look at her. And this happens in my constituency. We have these girls who are showing me all these medals that they've won internationally in judo, in karate, and besides the proud parent or maybe a few proud villagers, nobody else is proud of, because they've gone into a male-dominated thing. So I really think, hats off to Mithali. She's really broken the glass ceiling in a man's world, you know, because we get stereotyped in certain things, and that's where, and one has to say that when they did so well in this World Cup, I think as women, we all felt so much of pride, which was unmatched when we were watching the men play. I don't think we felt.
I agree with that.
You know, there was just something from inside where you just felt so good. So Mithali, maybe you'd get compared and maybe you don't get the same thing, but believe me, every woman out there was there rooting for you and felt your pride, a sense of pride in ourselves.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
And I think that's another thing about women. We feel happy in each other's success. Yes, maybe in films, I agree. it's tough because you're like competing for the same role and all, maybe different, but somehow I think in, be it sports and in other professions, we somewhere feel happy when we see another woman rise, and I think that's the beauty again. It's just women, we're different to the guys.
So I want to ask all 5 of you how you see the word ambition. And I ask this because I really feel it's still used as a slur when it comes to women, and the more successful a woman is, the more your ambition is used against you. So I'll start from that side, this side. Sonam, I'll start with you. Is ambition still a bad word?
Not in my dictionary.
No, for other people.
For other people, yes, it is, you know. I mean, yesterday I was doing this program and everybody was speaking about some impending wedding of some other actor and Karina's pregnancy and everything. And do you think it's coming in the way, or do you think all of that and blah, blah, blah? Do you think it's okay to work through this situation and that situation? And I was like, is there anything wrong with having ambition to do well in your field so that you're not, you know, so that you don't get left behind?
Exactly.
And that's what's happened to women. We've gotten left behind. It's not a dirty word, it's not a bad word, and that's the perception. And we all need to understand that when you are ambitious, it's actually for everybody else. So do not look at it as a selfish thing. Look at it as something that is going to lift other women up. So if you succeed, like everybody succeeded here, it gives me also some hope that, you know, one day when I decide to become a wife or a mother or anything else, I will not get left behind. I will also be able to work and, you know, go down in posterity in some way, so other people will aspire, other women will aspire to be something. So it should not be looked as that at all.
Mithali, ambition, I think, is a wonderful thing, but why are ambitious women seen in a certain way?
Well, I think it has got a negative connotation when it comes to women, terms like ambition and desire to excel. If not for ambition, I don't think my team would have even come to the World Cup final. It is my ambition to see the Indian team rise above. So that is the drive that everybody has in each of us. It is there to achieve goals. Goals, how do you achieve your goals? You have an ambition and you go ahead. So why people discriminate that term with only associating it positively with men, and they have the right to aspire and have great goals and achieve it? Why not women? And they should be given equal opportunities to have their own ambitions and go ahead in life.
Harinder, have we all made our peace that tomorrow, if we are seen to be, hard, this pressure on women to be successful but be soft, right? So the moment you say, I'm successful and I'm ambitious and I'm proud of my ambition, you're somehow seen to be too manly. Does that happen still?
I think, what all of this we're talking about is about the fact that what everybody would like is for women to do their achievements in the back room, in the kitchen, somewhere else where nobody sees them, and that'll be nice. We don't threaten anybody. The thing about ambition for me, it's about daring to dream. And I always say, thank you. I always say to my daughter, the worst glass ceiling you're going to ever face is the one you put on yourself.
Yes, well said.
So, and why do we have this? Why do women lack confidence? Why do these things happen? It's because there's nobody up there. You look up and there's no one up there. There's no woman, there's no one you can emulate. The ones who have got there at tremendous cost that you say, I'm not prepared to pay that price. 16 years, my God, I really take my hat off to you. That is, how many men would do that?
Yeah, exactly.
So then, what do you see? You see women who've paid great prices to get to those levels, and they are then labelled ambitious, and daughters are told, don't be like that. So,
but why aren't we proud of being ambitious?
And we should.
Why are we constantly apologizing for our ambition? I don't know, I just feel we're still apologetic. Chanda, do you feel apologetic about being successful?
No, not at all. No, but I think, we all misconstrue this term ambition. What is ambition? Ambition is just about, backing your desire with great amount of work and see it succeed. So, to have a dream without ambition is probably the same thing as you have a car without fuel. It won't move anywhere. So I think ambition is just the way of making your dreams happen. And that's the way we should view ambition. And in my view, ambition and success is therefore very relative and very specific to the person. Everybody does not need to have the ambition of being the CEO. But, you know, somebody may just have the ambition of being a great mother to 2 children and just be satisfied with it. And I think that we must respect that ambition.
But can we respect it if a man wants to do the same?
Well, why not? Why not?
But we don't.
No,
That's the point.
I think
we also have to
times are
question
changing.
our own socialization.
Absolutely. And I think we, again, you know, it's about the whole ecosystem. It's about what we think. It's about what our families think. It's about what the society at large thinks. But I think the biggest message I would give is to the women themselves. That is, first of all, there is no harm in having an ambition. Ambition is a part of life. The second is that, you know, let us not be too hard upon ourselves when it comes to ambition. We have an ambition to create a career for ourselves, to create an identity for ourselves, which would mean that maybe minute to minute we do have to prioritize. There will be some PTA meetings that you will miss because you will be attending office. And there would also be some board meetings that you will miss because at the most crucial time, maybe your child will fall sick and you will have to choose to be home at that time. So it's about a minute-to-minute prioritization. On that minute, your ambition is just to make sure your child recovers well. That's it. The next minute, your ambition, or the next day, your ambition was to make the best presentation to that board meeting where you were sitting. So I think prioritize minute by minute. You will not be 100% successful every minute because you're doing 2 things at the same time. You're being a housewife, a mother, and so on. You're being a career person. It's like getting 200% out of 100% of the time. So prioritize minute by minute, but overall, you get, you know, a very balanced life, and that is what the ambition should be about.
But what about the pressure to be everything?
So I'll tell you a story. You know, so I have this, you know, talking about guilt and talking about saying that, you know, are you there everywhere all the time? I had one mother who met me, you will not believe it, just last week. She was talking about the fact that my daughter, who's now 29 years old, saying that, you know, when our daughters were 5 years, and I remember that, they were learning music in a class. And she said, do you remember my daughter and your daughter used to learn music in the same class? I said, yes, of course, I remember very well. And she said, oh, you know, they learned it so well. Of course, you were never there for those classes. I was always there. Was there a need to say that? Well, I heard that. But at the same time, you know, my son, when he wrote an essay, when he was maybe 8 or 10 years old in school, he was asked about his mother. Actually, he was asked about, they were all asked about, write about a woman who you really look up to. And he wrote about the mother, but the line that I loved the most is he wrote saying that while she is in office all the time, I still know that I cannot get away by eating wrong. She will know very well that I've eaten something wrong. So I think that's the way it is. Well, you were not present for every music class, but you devoted that part of life by giving them values where they studied when it was studying time, they ate when it was eating time, and they grew up to be grounded, good human beings. I think that's what is important.
But what about being defined, and I want to ask you this, what about being defined by men? Like I saw this happen to Hillary Clinton, right? I think one of the reasons that she lost, apart from strategic mistakes in her campaign, is because she carried the baggage of being married to Bill Clinton, and suddenly there was all this delayed anger with the establishment, and she had to carry the can for him. Do you find that, you said the dinner stag, but do you find that you're defined by your husband, by your brother, by your father-in-law, all of whom are in politics? I mean, firstly, you're a Sardarni, and a Sardarni is as tough as nails. I say this as a parochial Punjabi, but still, does this happen to you, to be defined by the men around you?
I think for the public, yes, but not for me. I try to carve up my own identity. And I think maybe in some cases, as far as the public is concerned, I've managed to. But what is tougher is to carve it out in your own family. When we I constantly hear my brother telling me, you know, the way you talk on TV, the way you scream and shout and fight, it's so unwomanly. Why don't you talk with a little bit more decorum and like a woman should? And I'm fed up of hearing that. I want to fight my battles and I want to fight them like a man. Who are you to tell me? But I constantly hear that how you should speak like a lady. So I keep trying. I've not been very successful.
Please don't. We like you the way you are.
Like you said, I'm a Sadarni. But, you know, I want to come back to ambition.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody who doesn't have an ambition. When we start off with life, we finish our education, we all have these ambitions about having to achieve and wanting to get there and do this and do that. And I've noticed that even in the rural areas, and they have a burning ambition. But the sad part is that as you get on in life, somewhere society, culture, it kind of bogs you down. While, you know, you burn with that ambition, but as you get married, as you have kids, that's supposed to take a back seat, which I think is fine because like Chanda says, that's what nurturing and woman, you can't have the guy carry the kid. You do carry it yourself. And when you carry a kid for 9 months, you have a responsibility towards that kid, which cannot be matched by someone who has not carried that kid. So yes, a part of what by nature we are made for nurturing is not only in humans, it's in animals as well.
But there are women who choose not to have children, and there are women who choose to privilege their careers over their family lives.
I'm glad that there
and those women are judged.
I'm glad there are some women who defy it and take those decisions, because I think there are some of us who buckle under it. I wanted to be a career woman. I had a father who told me, okay, then if you don't get married, I'll hang my head in shame. I had one daughter, I couldn't marry him. So I said, okay, Dad, I'll marry, then I don't want you to hang your head in shame. So I'm glad there are some women who defy that and manage to stick to what they want to do in life. But there are the rest of us who maybe not all like me who get married, but we make a good marriage out of that as well by making a balance. But yes, that guilt is always there. So ambition is there. It burns the brightest, I think, when you're young. And that's the time you should go for it. And as you go on in life, yes, you will have to compromise. And like Chanda says, sometimes the priorities will change. But at the end of the day, you will achieve. And the main thing is to look back and think that I tried and I'm happy with what I've achieved. Because society is never going to tell you you've done a good job. Nobody else is going to tell you you've done a good job, neither your husband, nor your kids, nor the people at large. You've got to believe yourself that I started out to do this, I've managed to achieve this, I'm satisfied. And if you're satisfied, believe me, you've done a good job.
Sonam, you want to add to that?
I just also have to say that what has really helped me is my upbringing. My mom and my father always said you can do what you want to do and how you want to do it. So for all the young boys and girls out there, that's the parenting that they should get. My father said, Sonam, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know. I want to do this. He said, you can do whatever you want. You're capable of doing better and more than any man or woman that I know. So I've never been told you don't have to look pretty or you don't have to wear nice clothes to be ambitious or to be a, you know, I've never been told that you have to be like a man to be successful. I hate that term, you know.
Which term?
That term that, you know, you're talking like a man or you have to be like a man or ambitious. I love dressing up, you know. I feel like a lot of men they feel like, oh, they don't want to be called metrosexual or, you know, they don't want to be termed that way. And I use it as a weapon because that is a weapon that I've been given.
But see, it's all about choice. You love dressing up. I hate it.
Yeah.
So, you know,
that choice has to be given. But I've
That's
also
not true. I don't think there's any woman who hates dressing.
I hate it. I hate
No, you
it.
may not
It's
like,
energy. It's a waste of time.
You may not like getting dolled up for a wedding and putting all the war paint, but I'm sure you like to wear nice clothes.
Yeah.
We all
What
do.
I mean is there is a different set of emphasis. Something else may excite me more, something else
I'm
may
just
excite
saying
her.
that what it is all about choice, like you said.
Exactly.
I have been given that choice. My sister doesn't like dressing up. But my sister runs my father's company. Okay? So there is a difference. I wanted to be an actor and I wanted to be a writer. And that's what my father said. You want to write? You can write. You want to direct? You can direct. Whatever you want to do, everything is available.
But you know, as we've heard here, not everybody, like for you, you had that privilege.
Yes, exactly.
She was under pressure to get married.
The biggest learning that should come from this is the nurturing that has been given to us. You know, there was a silent march that I was a part of, and everybody said, why do you think that men are, you know, so why is this such a misogynistic, sexist society that we live in? I said, it's because of the upbringing that we've been given. Yeah. I was like, because mothers and fathers have been showing men and they're telling their sons you're better than the girl. Whether they're telling them or not, but subliminally, subconsciously, that's the message that's been going out there.
Okay, I want to keep about 5-6 minutes for questions. Mithali, very quickly to you, because you said your grandparents didn't approve. You said it took you 18 years to Sachin's 22 to get the recognition that is, you know, should have been yours long ago. How many battles are you fighting simultaneously? On field, we know. Off field?
Off field, yes. I'm 35, and the common question that I'm asked is why I'm not settled. But
I hate that word settled.
Me too.
I never want to be settled. I always want to be unsettled.
There's more joy to it. And, but I keep telling them that, you know, when I have really worked hard and I have sacrificed so much, my parents have sacrificed so much to get me where I am today, why should I all let it go only because to follow what the society has to tell me or the society norms that you have to get married at a certain age? I'm very happy with my life. I'm successful, and that should be enough for everybody. You know, when we go out as individuals, we want to grow, we want to be successful. So I am successful. I've got a sport where people now look up to. It's got its visibility. There are many girls taking up cricket. So I think you know, my ambition where it is successful, and I don't find any reason why I should get married. I will get married only when I want to, when I'm comfortable. Yeah, it's a choice, and if you want to judge on my choice, that's your choice, but I'll live my life on my terms.
Good for you. Okay, before concluding comments, some questions. Please raise your hand. Please wait for me and the microphone to reach you. Third row, green kurta. Stand up so the mic can reach you. Run, run, run. We're on limited time. Yeah.
Thank you. So my question is for Sonam. So I'm also a budding actor.
Yes.
And the thing you said about the budget. So whenever I see these casting calls on Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups, they say that there is intimate scene or bikini scene, but the budget is not that much. So I am lucky that I am brought up in a very progressive family where my parents have set rules and I have set ethics and rules for myself.
What's your question? Question, quickly.
Yeah, my question is, so what do we do with these sort of casting calls that there are girls who get into this pitfall and they go into all of this?
Answer quickly. I want to move it along quickly. Yeah.
I didn't actually understand your question, but all I can say is that when you're getting casting calls from someone, there are a lot of like fake casting directors who ask girls to come in. And I think it's always better to, if you've been around doing auditions for a while, or you should ask your fellow actors or girls who are going to casting calls, always go with someone. Don't go by yourselves, because it's very dangerous to do that. There are 5-6 casting directors. So this, I don't know if this is the right platform for it, but later on, if you want, I can speak to you about it.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, can we keep questions to the issues and not your personal problems? We will take a question this side in the front row. Yes.
My question is to Chanda ma'am. Chanda ma'am, I represent a community of mothers, and there the important discussion is always about returning back to career. And as you were discussing about it, a lot of women tend to generally sell themselves short when they come back after the career break. And a lot of people, like a lot of recruiting companies, tell them to agree to what they have been offered. Do you agree with this point? And if yes, why and why not?
The returning to the workforce issue after a break in your career.
Selling yourself short.
And selling yourself short.
Well, I think, first of all, you know, I believe in, therefore, this to say that try not to give up itself, because while it's very difficult while you're having your kids, but if you go past that stage through whatever, partly your own determination, partly through the ecosystem around you, and partly if the organization has friendly policies around that, try not to give up, because that's, you know, once you're past that stage, then actually sky's the limit for you. But yes, if you had to give up, I think make an effort to come back as soon as you can. Because, you know, what you call this as saying, selling yourself cheap or whatever, coming at a lower thing. But the issue is that you have given out or been away for those few years. So even when you come back, you need to, you know, spend a little bit of time getting back into it. So I don't think, again, you should just compare yourself with saying that if I was working, I would have been at that level, and therefore that's the only level I would come and join back. It's okay, join a little bit wherever, you know, the organization has place for you, but have the determination that you would move as fast as you can. I think we have to agree, if anybody moves out for a few years, there would be a certain gap in the career. But what's more important is to be determining to come back. And in fact, again, many organizations like ours have this network also set out to say, women who left, what can we do to bring them back, to counsel them, to train them a little bit, in fact, after before they join back again, because you bring them up the curve on some things that may have happened during that period, but it's important to come back.
First to hear.
My question is a general question, that was related to the guilt part. So I want to know, we all feel guilty when our children are unwell and you have to decide to take a call whether you have to be present in office or with the kids. So how to deal with that? It's psychologically killing to have
to deal with. Do you feel it?
Absolutely. Absolutely every day.
Ma'am?
I think like we decided earlier that this guilt trip and women, it's never going to go away. I think in your heart, when the balance is, when your kid requires you, believe me, you will put that kid before everything else. And if it's the call of duty, you will know which is more important. You'll know it in your heart and you'll make the right decision. I think I've done it so many times. I'm sure each one of you have done it. We just know what needs to be done. So go with what it tells you from inside. Don't go with what others are trying to tell you and brainwash you and what society expects you to do. Just put that aside. Yes, listen to it, be reasonable, and then take your own decision. You'll make the right one.
Last question. I will take it at the back. Pink, I see some hand in pink. Yeah, there. Pink jacket. Quickly. I've got 30 seconds of final comments.
I have a question for Harsimrat, ma'am. Ma'am, you mentioned that women are the women who stand up for them. I would like to contradict over here. The question being, do we always have to pay a price to stand up to our fellow women?
Do we always have to?
Pay a price to stand up to our fellow women.
Do we always have to pay a price to stand up for ourselves?
I don't think so. Yes, in some cases, and no in some cases. When I say that we must stand up for another woman, I think let's not expect the men to do it. Let's start doing it ourselves. Let's be happy in another woman's success. And when you do that, and that becomes the norm, there will be people supporting you and there will be people standing up and pushing you ahead when you're like, should I not? So let's just make up our minds to do it. And I really believe once we women make up our minds, we can even move mountains. So let's decide to do it.
Okay, I'm going to take final comments, brief closing comments. I know all of you are also short on time. Sonam, this stereotyping of women as catty, women bitching each other out, women unable to get along, it's something that actually the industry and industry interviews play on a lot.
Yeah.
How have you countered that?
I mean, honestly, Karina and I are doing a film together called Veere the Wedding.
Just hold the mic like that.
Karina and I are doing a film called Veere the Wedding together, and very shockingly, a website that is actually owned by a woman has said that Bebo and I were having a huge fight on set, which is absolutely not true. She's a wonderful professional to work with. And I'm the producer of the film, so I shouldn't be having a fight with my leading lady. And so a female journalist has written this article, which is completely made up and completely absurd. And again, the whole point is it's a generalization that women bitch, women are catty, women can't get along. Two female actresses can't be friends. Yeah. Two of my best friends are in the film industry, Jacqueline and Swara. And they're completely different from each other. So what I'm trying to explain is that there is no way to counter it besides I had to give a clarification. Because it's bizarre. So I had to give a clarification saying there was no such issue on this set. And when women are coming together to make something, instead of supporting us, you are writing this article. So all of us have to actually come together.
I always say misogyny and feminism are both gender neutral. Yeah. Mithali, one thing you'd say to young girls who want to come into sports as a career?
Well, I think it's very exciting time for women's cricket, and everybody now appreciates and acknowledges the women's cricket sport in our country. And even BCCI is taking initiatives to, organically spread women's cricket from the grassroots level. So it's a good time to take this sport as a profession, which earlier a lot of male cricketers themselves have advocated, saying they wouldn't allow their daughters to take up women's cricket because there was nothing in women's cricket. So it's come a long way.
And I think you've done your bit for that. Harinder, diplomacy and men in suits in the age of Trump, what does it mean to be a woman?
I knew you were going to stick politics in there.
You know I can't be well-behaved all the time. Never, in fact.
Look, diplomacy is a challenging business, but there's no reason why it should be out of bounds for women. We are working in Australia very much to increase the number of women, not just in the diplomatic service, but actually at the senior levels as ambassadors and so forth. What women bring is, I think, a very different way of looking at the world, and it's often a more successful way of looking at the world, because coming in from a different perspective often lets you see things that others don't see. I don't think the world is going in one way or the other. I think we're making steady progress for women. I just wish it was a lot faster.
Chanda, as an icon of business and leadership, something you would say or you have done, having borrowed from your own experience in your own battles, that you think will keep more women in work and at work?
Well, I think it's more about the fact that if women decide and desire, they can do and achieve whatever they want. Because, as I said, life is not easy. If you want to have a career, if you want to have a family. But the most important thing is, does the woman desire to do it or not? As I have moved, through life, yes, there were many instances where, I said, oh, it's so much of hard work, what am I trying to do? Today this is not happening, tomorrow that's not happening, and so on. But every time I reminded myself that I'm doing it because I want to do it, because I desire to do it. I desire to have a great career for myself. I desire to see that my children grow up well. So I desire to make sure that, are they eating properly? Are they studying properly? Are they doing this properly? And so on and so forth. So because I want to do it, I have done it. So I would say that the biggest thing is for the girls and the women to decide that they want to do it. And if they decide, there's nothing stopping them.
And I also love the fact that there were so many I's in that sentence, because women are so hesitant about making it about ourselves. And I really think that it's time to stop being selfless and be a little selfish. Last word to you. Are you really struggling still with parliament and politics as a boys' club?
No. But I think what I would want to end on the note is that you've done a great thing by talking about we the women.
Yeah.
And I think if you have started this dialogue, let's, all the women here, if we decide to make up our mind that let's go look for that one person who's less privileged than me, find out what their ambition is and support them.
Absolutely.
You'll be surprised what you can do. I mean, I started a little venture which was to change people's mindset about female feticide. And as I got into it, I realized why the girl was considered a burden, because she was financially dependent. I started a small thing, which now has grown and empowered 10,000. In your home, in your friend circle, in your society, you will find so many people who just need a little bit of a helping hand. No matter how poor or how small you are, there's always somebody less privileged than you. If you make up your mind to do a little bit to help that person, it'll go a long way. Somebody said, the road to a long journey starts with a single step. You've started we the women, we've all talked about ourselves. Let's go back with this room full of women deciding to go back and help one other woman do the next thing she's had and ambitious to do. And look at the way it'll multiply. And then if we make this chain, that's what's going to bring in the difference in society. So I think that's what you need to take away.
I think that's fantastically said, and I think this platform has to be more than a festival, has to be more than an event. It has to be a community that mentors others and uses leaders like yourselves to enable others. A big round of applause for this fantastic panel. Absolutely fantastic. Really superb. But I'm going to request everybody to remain seated, our panelists to remain seated as well. As you've been seeing over the last 2 days, we've instituted an award. We call it the HER Award. HER stands for Hope, Empowerment, power rise. You've seen an absolutely eclectic mix of women and men, by the way, receive this award. And this morning, I will ask Union Minister Harsimrat Badal to first present the Her Award to Chanda Kochhar, if we can get the award. Let's have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. A big round of applause for Chanda Kochhar for being a leader in business. A big round of applause again for Chanda. And just one more minute. I want the minister and our panelists also to felicitate three incredible women. This is a personally favorite theme of mine, to see more women in the military, to see more women at the war front. It is something I feel passionately about. I'm waiting for the day that women are allowed into roles of combat. But I would like to honor three women in uniform: Colonel Sophia Qureshi, Colonel Navneet Dugal, and DIG Neetu Bhattacharya. Can we please have all three of you on stage and get our awards out, please? Let's have a standing ovation for these women in uniform. Proud of the women in uniform especially. Let's have a special round of applause for them. Three cheers to all of you. More power to every single woman on this stage. A big round of applause again. Thank you very much.